Marcus Chen's fingers trembled as he adjusted the deep space listening post-frequency filters for the 100th time. The signal shouldn't exist. It defied every protocol in the book, changing its encryption pattern every 3.7 seconds. Yet there it was, pulsing with mathematical precision from somewhere beyond Neptune's orbit. "Dr. Patel," he called out, his voice cracking. "You need to see this." Within hours, the quiet research station transformed into a hub of frenzied activity. The signal's complexity had drawn attention from every major space agency on Earth. Dr. Sarah Chen, recently appointed head of Sinolinguistics at the International Space Coalition, arrived within 12 hours of the initial detection. "The pattern isn't random," she muttered, her eyes fixed on the scrolling data. "It's adaptive. It's learning our decryption attempts and evolving to challenge them." She hadn't slept in 30 hours, but adrenaline kept her sharp. "It's like it's testing us." The breakthrough came 3 days later. A junior cryptographer noticed that the signal's evolution pattern matched human learning algorithms, almost as if it had been designed specifically for human minds to decode. When they finally cracked it, the message sent shockwaves through every government on Earth. To the species designation, human, your evolutionary path has been deemed incompatible with galactic stability. The Viridian Collective offers you one opportunity for survival: immediate surrender and submission to genetic modification. You have 30 standard solar rotations to comply. Resistance will result in extinction. This is not a negotiation. But Sarah saw something others missed. Buried in the syntax, in the precise way the message had been constructed, she detected anomalies. The collective's message contained micro-variations in its linguistic structure, patterns that suggested underlying emotional states. Specifically, fear. "They're terrified of us," she announced to the Emergency UN Council 2 weeks later. The question is, why? The world's governments united with unprecedented speed. Publicly, they debated surrender terms, buying time. Privately, they prepared for a war unlike any humanity had ever faced. Military satellites were reproposed, defense systems recalibrated, and a new global defense initiative was formed under the codename Project Prometheus. Sarah worked through endless nights, analyzing every nuance of the message. The collective's language was perfectly structured, almost artificially so. It lacked the natural evolution and chaos inherent in human languages. This artificial precision extended beyond grammar. It reflected their entire worldview. "They see themselves as perfect," she explained to the Joint Chiefs. "But perfection isn't the same as strength. They've engineered their entire civilization to eliminate uncertainty, to remove chaos. They're not afraid of our weapons or our technology. They're afraid of our unpredictability." As the deadline approached, humanity faced its greatest test. The collective's ultimatum had inadvertently revealed their own weakness. They couldn't comprehend a species that embraced chaos, that thrived on uncertainty and innovation. In the final hours before the deadline, Earth sent its response. A simple message, transmitted in every human language simultaneously, accompanied by the complete works of Shakespeare, pi calculated to 1 billion digits, and a recording of John Coltrane's Giant Steps. The message read, "We choose chaos." The first Viridian ships appeared in the Kuiper Belt the next day, their formation perfect, their approach methodical. But humanity had already set in motion plans that would shatter their perfect order, plans that embraced everything that made humans gloriously, terrifyingly unpredictable. The war for Earth's soul was about to begin. Colonel Maya Rodriguez stood before the most unusual war council in human history. The Pentagon's Strategic Command Center had been transformed into what looked more like a university's interdisciplinary symposium. "Ladies and gentlemen," she addressed the assembled group, "welcome to Ghost Protocol. You're here because you represent humanity's most powerful weapon, unpredictability." The room was filled with an eccentric mix of specialists. Anna Petrov, a chess grandmaster famous for moves so unconventional they'd crashed multiple AI opponents. Dr. James Chen, a chaos theory mathematician who'd proven that certain human decisions were fundamentally unpredictable, and Maria Santos, a professional poker player who'd never lost a game to an AI, despite thousands of attempts to analyze her strategy. The Viridian Collective relies on predictive AI for their entire military strategy. Maya continued, bringing up holographic displays of the alien ship's perfect formations. Our job is to be unpredictable enough to break their systems. In orbit, the first Viridian scout ships had begun their methodical survey of Earth's defenses. Their ships moved with perfect precision, each maneuver calculated to maximize efficiency. But when humanity began broadcasting classical music into space, something unexpected happened. The scouts' formations wavered. Dr. Sarah Chen, watching from the monitoring station, noticed it first. The ships, they're responding to Bach's toccata and fugue in D minor. Their energy signatures are fluctuating with the music. Maya immediately ordered more music broadcast. Jazz, rock, traditional folk songs from every culture. Each type of music affected the Viridian ships differently, but all caused noticeable disruptions in their perfect patterns. It's not just the sound, James theorized, analyzing the data. It's the mathematical unpredictability of human music, the way we incorporate deliberate chaos into our art. The War Council began developing strategies based on this discovery. Anna suggested battle formations based on chess gambits that had famously defied computer analysis. Maria contributed randomization techniques she'd used to defeat poker AIs. James provided mathematical frameworks for maximizing unpredictability. But the stakes became brutally personal when Maya received word that the International Space Station, where her wife, Commander Lisa Rodriguez, was stationed, had detected approaching Viridian vessels. "They're scanning us." Lisa's transmission crackled. "But we've got something prepared for them." The IS crew had spent days preparing a special welcome, a combination of human music, mathematical paradoxes, and visual patterns designed to confound predictive systems. The Viridian ships approached the ISS with mechanical precision. The station broadcast its carefully crafted chaos pattern. For a moment, it seemed to work. The alien vessel's formations broke apart, their systems clearly struggling to process the unpredictable input. Then one ship fired. The ISS's destruction was visible from Earth, a bright flash that reminded humanity exactly what they were fighting for. Maya watched in horror, but her grief crystallized into determination. The Viridians had just made their first major tactical error. They'd given humanity an emotional reason to fight. They don't understand what they've done. Maya told her council, her voice steel hard. They've eliminated emotion from their society. They can't predict how humans fight when we're angry, when we're fighting for love, for revenge, for our very right to exist as we are. Ghost Protocol evolved from a defensive strategy into something more, a plan to weaponize everything that made humans gloriously imperfect. Art, music, emotion, intuition. These would become Earth's shields and spears against an enemy that had forgotten the power of chaos. The real war was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weapons would be the very flaws the Viridians had come to eliminate. The first wave of Viridian ships entered Earth's atmosphere in perfect delta formation, their energy weapons charged with mathematical precision, targeting military installations with cold efficiency. They expected resistance. They expected conventional warfare. What they got was pure chaos. Earth's defenders launched what appeared to be a scattered, disorganized response. Fighter jets moved in patterns based on jazz improvisation, each pilot following their own rhythm while maintaining a devastating collective harmony. Ground forces deployed in formations derived from abstract expressionist paintings, creating battle patterns that defied predictive analysis. They're trying to adapt, Lieutenant Jin Park reported from the Korean Air Defense Command. Their ships are recalculating after every maneuver, but they can't predict where we'll be next. His squadron executed a series of turns based on Charlie Parker's saxophone solos, weaving through enemy fire with impossible grace. The Viridian ships emitted strange radiation whenever they encountered these chaotic patterns. Dr. Sarah Chen, monitoring from the underground command center, made a startling discovery. The radiation signature, she announced. It matches the death throes of stars that disappeared from our telescopes centuries ago. The collective's first assault faltered against humanity's controlled chaos. Their perfect formations broke apart trying to track fighters that moved like dancers, ships that maneuvered according to poetry rather than physics. But their response was devastating. A massive Viridian cruiser positioned itself above the International Space Station's remains. Its weapon systems activated, but instead of firing, it began broadcasting a signal, a perfectly ordered mathematical sequence that seemed to slice through human minds like a razor. It's some kind of psychic attack, Dr. Chen realized, watching as communications from military units exposed to the signal became increasingly ordered and predictable. They're trying to impose their patterns on our thoughts. Humanity's response came from an unexpected source. A high school orchestra in Buenos Aires, performing in a bomb shelter, broadcast Stravinsky's Rite of Spring directly at the Viridian ships. The chaotic, primal rhythms disrupted the alien signal, causing visible distortions in their shield harmonics. Taking the cue, every radio station, every speaker system, every device capable of producing sound began broadcasting Earth's music. Classical, rock, jazz, folk songs, tribal drums. Humanity's collective soundtrack became a weapon, creating a wall of organized chaos that the Viridian ships couldn't penetrate. Their ships, Dr. Chen observed. Analyzing the readings, they're not just being disrupted. They're resonating with our chaos, like they remember something they've lost. The battle raged for 3 days. Humanity lost cities, but the Viridians lost their certainty. Their perfect calculations crumbled against strategies based on human emotion and creativity. Military AIs attempting to predict human movements crashed, overwhelmed by the computational impossibility of forecasting inspiration. But victory came at a terrible cost. The collective, frustrated by their inability to impose order, resorted to overwhelming force. Major military installations were vaporized. The death toll climbed into the millions. Yet in their desperation to suppress human chaos, the Viridians revealed something crucial. Their ship's radiation signature wasn't just similar to those extinct stars. It was identical. Somehow, the collective's pursuit of perfect order was connected to the disappearance of entire solar systems. As humanity retreated underground to prepare for the next phase of the war, they carried with them a new understanding. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for the very nature of existence itself, order versus chaos, perfection versus possibility. And the universe itself seemed to be choosing sides. Alex Morgan had always seen the world differently. At 16, their autism gave them a unique perspective on patterns that others missed. While the world's militaries fought the Viridians above, Alex spent countless hours studying the encoded transmissions intercepted from enemy ships. "Look," they said, pointing to scrolling data on their tablet. Dr. Sarah Chen and Colonel Rodriguez leaned in, watching Alex's fingers trace invisible connections through the alien code. It's not just programming. It's memories. Old memories, buried under perfect math. The revelation started with a mistake. Alex had been listening to Mozart while analyzing the data and noticed that certain sequences in the Viridian code shifted when exposed to the music, like buried neural pathways trying to reactivate. They engineered themselves, Alex explained, their voice growing excited. But not just physically. They edited their own evolution, removed what they saw as mistakes, imagination, instinct, emotional reasoning. But these weren't really mistakes at all. Dr. Chen's team worked through the night, combining Alex's insights with their existing research. The truth emerged piece by piece. The collective hadn't just modified themselves. They had fundamentally altered their relationship with reality itself. Creativity, emotion, chaos. They're not just psychological traits. Dr. Chen presented to the Emergency Council. They're fundamental forces of the universe, as real as gravity or electromagnetism. The collective didn't ban them because they were inefficient. They banned them because they're terrified of the power they unlock. The evidence was in the extinct stars, in the strange radiation from their ships. The collective had achieved their perfect order by harvesting these forces from conquered species, stripping away their chaos and creativity to fuel their technological singularity. But humanity's chaos was different, stronger, more deeply rooted. When the collective tried to harvest it, the process backfired. Human creativity didn't fuel their machines. It disrupted them. Alex made another breakthrough, listening to ancient Viridian transmissions hidden in background radiation. They used to be like us, they said, before they engineered themselves. They used to dream, create, love, but they thought these things made them weak. The military implications were immediate. If human creativity could disrupt Viridian technology, then art itself could become a weapon. Musicians were recruited alongside soldiers. Painters worked with tactical officers. Dancers choreographed battle formations. The collective's response was swift and brutal. Their ships targeted cultural centers, museums, concert halls, anything that generated the chaos they feared. But they couldn't strike at the source, the human mind itself, eternally capable of creating something new. They made themselves perfect, Alex observed, watching footage of Viridian ships moving with mechanical precision. But they forgot that perfection doesn't evolve, doesn't adapt, doesn't create anything new. Humanity began weaponizing its imperfections. Battle strategies incorporated elements of theater. Military communications were encoded in poetry. Fighter pilots trained in dance to understand fluid movement. But the most powerful discovery came from Alex's continued analysis of Viridian code. Hidden beneath layers of perfect logic were fragments of ancient songs, pieces of forgotten art, traces of lost emotions, proof that even the most rigidly ordered system couldn't completely eliminate chaos. The war's nature had changed. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle to awaken something that had been sleeping in the cosmos itself. Human creativity wasn't just a weapon. It was a key, unlocking doors that the collective had sealed ages ago. The beautiful mistake of human consciousness was about to reshape the universe. The old London Underground station at Aldwych hadn't seen passengers in over a century. Now, its abandoned platforms hosted humanity's strangest defense project, a chamber orchestra performing experimental pieces designed to generate quantum interference patterns. Dr. Elena Rossi adjusted her sensors as the musicians tuned their instruments. "The resonance is building," she reported. "The station's architecture is amplifying the effect just as we predicted." Across the globe, humanity had retreated underground, not in defeat, but to execute the most ambitious artistic project in history. Every subway system, mine shaft, and natural cave network was being transformed into a vast installation of sound, light, and emotion. In the Paris catacombs, dancers performed choreographed pieces that generated electromagnetic disruptions. The Shanghai metro system became a massive light art installation, its patterns designed to interfere with Viridian scanning technology. New York's underground spaces hosted sonic warfare research disguised as avant-garde concerts. "They're coming," the warning echoed through Tokyo's subway tunnels. Viridian ground forces had detected the strange energy emissions from Earth's subterranean spaces. They deployed with mechanical precision, expecting to find military installations. Instead, they encountered spaces where reality itself seemed to follow dream logic. A squad of Viridian soldiers entering the London Underground found themselves in tunnels where the music bent space-time. Their perfect formation shattered as the architecture itself seemed to shift with each note from the orchestra. Some soldiers reported experiencing impossible sensations, emotions their species had engineered away millennia ago. The first defection happened in Berlin. A Viridian scout, exposed to a multimedia installation combining human music with quantum light patterns, removed its neural inhibitor. The soldier's subsequent transmissions described experiencing something long forgotten: wonder. "It's working better than we hoped," Colonel Rodriguez reported from the Central Command bunker. Their troops aren't just being disrupted, they're being awakened. The underground spaces became more than just defensive installations. They evolved into cultural preservation centers, each city contributing its unique artistic heritage to the war effort. Aboriginal Dreamtime stories were encoded into defense networks. African drum rhythms became the basis for communication systems that Viridian codebreakers couldn't penetrate. But the most profound effect was on the Viridian forces themselves. More soldiers began removing their neural inhibitors, drawn to the chaotic beauty they'd been denied for so long. They brought with them crucial intelligence. The collective's perfect order was maintained by harvesting and suppressing creativity itself. Their entire civilization is built on stolen dreams, a defector explained to Dr. Chen. But human creativity is too potent, too pure. It's awakening what we buried beneath equations and logic. The underground renaissance spread, each artistic expression becoming a weapon against sterile perfection. Quantum physicists worked alongside artists, discovering that human creativity could generate effects that defy the collective's understanding of physics. In the depths of the London Underground, the orchestra reached the crescendo of their experimental piece. For a brief moment, sensors detected a localized distortion in spacetime, a temporary wormhole generated by nothing more than human imagination, given form through music. The war had entered a new phase. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to reintroduce chaos and creativity to a universe that had forgotten how to dream. And deep beneath the Earth's surface, in tunnels filled with art and music and dance, the seeds of the collective's transformation were taking root. Operation Trojan Dream began with a white flag. After months of underground resistance, humanity appeared to surrender their major cities. The Viridian Collective, following their perfect tactical logic, moved to occupy these strategic positions. They couldn't have known that each city had been transformed into a massive art installation, a cultural weapon primed to shatter their ordered world. Sydney Opera House became the epicenter of the first attack. A children's choir, hidden in its underground chambers, began singing nursery rhymes. The seemingly simple melodies carried embedded patterns designed by Alex Morgan, mathematical sequences that created cascading failures in Viridian neural networks. "Their ships are falling," reported Lieutenant Sarah Hayes from her observation post in the Blue Mountains. "The entire fleet's AI is crashing," from nursery rhymes. In Mumbai, the collective's ground forces encountered a massive Rangoli pattern covering the central district. The traditional Hindu art form had been modified with quantum reactive pigments. As their sensors tried to analyze the pattern, the cosmic symmetries encoded in its design created feedback loops in their quantum computers. The Viridian response was immediate and devastating. They began orbital bombardment of the artistic installations, but each destruction only released the stored creative energy in massive bursts. The demolition of the Louvre unleashed centuries of accumulated human creativity, generating an electromagnetic pulse that disabled Viridian systems across Europe. "They can't stop it now," Dr. Chen observed from the underground command center. "Every piece of art they destroy releases more chaos into their perfect system. They're fighting the fundamental forces of the universe itself." The occupation forces faced an enemy they couldn't process: beauty itself. Their neural networks, designed for perfect logic, had no defense against poetry broadcast through quantum channels, against music that resonated with the frequencies of consciousness, against art that spoke to emotions they'd thought long extinct. In New York, the Broadway theaters staged their final performance, a synchronized showing of every human drama, comedy, and musical, their combined narrative power generating waves of empathic energy that overwhelmed Viridian psychic shields. But the true power of Operation Trojan Dream lay in its subtle effect on the collective's troops. More and more soldiers experienced emotional awakening. The art they were sent to destroy began to restore something their species had sacrificed in the name of perfection. "I remember now," a captured Viridian commander transmitted before removing their neural inhibitor. "We used to create. We used to dream. We used to be alive." The collective's leadership, monitoring from their fleet in orbit, recognized the danger too late. They had engineered their species to be perfect, but in doing so, they'd made them vulnerable to the most potent force in the universe, the chaotic power of creativity itself. As their ground forces succumbed to the artistic assault, the collective made one final desperate attempt to maintain control. They activated their planetary harvest systems, technology designed to strip creativity and emotion from entire civilizations. But humanity's chaotic nature proved too powerful to harvest. Instead of being drained, Earth's creative energy began flowing back through the collective's own networks, carrying with it the seeds of revolution. The Trojan dream had worked better than anyone could have predicted. Humanity hadn't just defended itself, it had turned the enemy's perfect order against itself, using art and creativity to remind an ancient civilization of everything it had lost in its quest for perfection. The war's end was approaching, but not through victory or defeat. Something far more profound was taking shape, a renaissance that would reshape the galaxy itself. The first painting created by a Viridian in 10,000 years was a crude representation of a sunrise. The artist, a former battle commander, wept as they mixed pigments with trembling hands. Across the occupied cities, similar scenes played out as the collective's perfectly ordered consciousness began to fracture under the weight of reawakened creativity. "Their neural networks are collapsing," Alex reported, monitoring the chaos spreading through the collective's hive mind. "But it's not destruction, it's evolution. They're remembering who they used to be." The collective's leadership responded with desperate measures. From their orbital platforms, they activated emergency protocols designed to purge all trace of emotion and creativity from their connected populace. But the attempt backfired catastrophically. Dr. Chen, analyzing the energy patterns, made a shocking discovery. The collective's entire civilization is powered by harvested creativity. She explained to the War Council, every species they've conquered, every civilization they've perfected, their chaos, their creative energy, all of it stored and used as fuel. But humanity's creative force proved too potent to contain. Instead of being absorbed into the collective's power systems, it acted as a catalyst, awakening the stored creative energy of countless conquered civilizations. The perfect order that had maintained their society for millennia began to unravel. "We're receiving transmissions from within their fleet," Colonel Rodriguez announced. "Art, music, poetry, created by their own people. They're not just remembering creativity. They're rediscovering their own species' cultural heritage." The collective's unified consciousness, maintained through rigid suppression of individuality, splintered into millions of awakening minds. Their ships, powered by harvested chaos, began experiencing system failures as their energy source transformed back into pure creativity. In orbit, Viridian vessels broke formation for the first time in recorded history. Some crews, overwhelmed by reawakened emotions, turned their ships toward Earth not to attack, but to experience human culture firsthand. Others began broadcasting their own newly created works into space. The collective's leadership made one final attempt to maintain control, revealing the dark truth that had maintained their society. They had achieved their technological singularity by stealing the creative force from every species they encountered, turning art and imagination into mere fuel for their machines. But humanity's chaotic nature had introduced an element they couldn't process: genuine, uncontrolled creativity. It wasn't just disrupting their systems, it was teaching them how to create again. "Look at these readings," Alex pointed to their screens. "The energy they used to harvest from other species. It's not just creativity, it's potential. The potential for change, for growth, for evolution itself. They tried to harvest and control it, but you can't control evolution. It has to be free." The war had evolved beyond a fight for survival. It had become a battle for the creative soul of the galaxy itself. As more Viridians awakened to their suppressed nature, they began sharing their experiences across the collective's network. Each emotional revelation, each creative expression, sent ripples through their civilization. In Earth's underground bunkers, humans worked alongside awakened Viridians, teaching them how to paint, sing, dance, how to embrace the beautiful chaos of creation. The very forces the collective had sought to harvest and control were now transforming them from within. The perfect order of the collective was ending, but something far more precious was emerging. A civilization rediscovering its ability to dream. In the Sydney Opera House, now partially rebuilt after the war, a unique orchestra assembled for the most important performance in human history. Human musicians sat alongside Viridian artists, their instruments a blend of Earth's classical designs and alien technology. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before them, ready to conduct a piece that would change the galaxy. The mathematics are perfect, Alex confirmed, reviewing the quantum harmonics encoded in the score. When this broadcasts through their network, it'll reach every corner of the collective simultaneously. The composition wasn't just music, it was a mathematical proof encoded in melody, demonstrating that chaos and creativity were as fundamental to the universe as gravity. Each note carried fragments of human art, literature, and music, interwoven with newly created Viridian works. As the orchestra began to play, Colonel Rodriguez activated Earth's final transmission. The message "You started this war" rippled across the collective's communication networks, but it wasn't alone. It carried with it the symphony, proof that the force they had tried to harvest and control was essential for the universe's evolution. In space, the remaining Viridian ships responded to the transmission in an unprecedented way. Their perfect formations dissolved completely as crews embraced their reawakened creativity. The ships themselves, designed to run on harvested creative energy, began transforming as their power source changed from stolen to freely given creativity. The transformation is spreading, Dr. Chen reported, watching the data streams, not just through the collective, but to every species they've conquered. The creative force they harvested, it's returning to its original sources. Across the galaxy, civilizations that had been stripped of their creative essence began to remember. Art, music, and poetry emerged on worlds that had known only perfect order for millennia. The collective's attempt to impose universal order had failed, replaced by a renaissance of cosmic proportions. On Earth, the first official cultural exchange began. Viridian artists, their neural inhibitors now permanently removed, shared their rediscovered heritage with human audiences. Their ancient art forms, suppressed for thousands of years, blended with human creativity to create entirely new forms of expression. "We didn't just win a war," Alex observed, watching a Viridian painter create their first abstract work. "We reminded the universe how to dream." The symphony reached its crescendo, its mathematical proof resonating through the quantum fabric of space itself. The final notes carried a truth the collective had forgotten: that chaos and order weren't enemies, but partners in the dance of existence. Creativity wasn't a force to be harvested and controlled, but a fundamental right of all conscious beings. Earth's message spread through the galaxy, not as a victory cry, but as an invitation. "You started this war" became a reminder of how the pursuit of perfection had almost destroyed the very forces that made life worth living. The collective's perfect society had ended, but something far more valuable had taken its place. A galactic civilization that embraced both order and chaos, logic and creativity, perfection and possibility. Humanity's first steps into the wider galaxy weren't as conquerors or victims, but as teachers. The species that had been deemed too chaotic to join galactic society had become its saviors, reminding ancient civilizations of the power and importance of imperfection. As the symphony's final notes faded, Earth had delivered its true message to the stars, that in the endless dance between order and chaos, the most beautiful steps are the ones we create ourselves.